This is Milkgenius. He's a Tauren mage, and he was born to suffer. Except things did not quite go to plan. You see, his suffering actually started much earlier than we intended. So let me explain this whole thing. Milkgenius is the first character on a fresh account. Matt and our team is going to use him for some upcoming challenge runs of the game. But, well, challenge actually found him first. That's because just getting to level 80 was an absolute nightmare. Let me tell you, we were shocked to find out how bad WoW really is for new players. It is literally unplayable in ways that we did not expect, and I am not joking. Whenever people send me things, first impressions count. And that's where today's sponsor Squarespace can let you make that strong first impression so you actually get through to the people you want to get through to. And today, they're easier, faster, and less fictitious than anyone else, and that's all because of the new way that you build a site. And I'll walk you through it. So first, Blueprint guides you through making your own template, and this really is amazing. It helps you select what pages you want, what fonts are best, what color palette to use, and by them, of course, doing the hard work of curating all of those and making it all just work, they keep you right. And that also extends to them adding new features. You can sell digital and physical products, there's courses, there's bookings for physical and digital, and there's even native video. Yes, native, not just an embed. Which basically just means it looks and feels way better and way more pro. Now, it's all designed to work together, and rather than be a bunch of cobbled together features with inconsistent design, it's actually seamless and professional so that your customers actually have a great first impression, which is what you want. And whenever they convert, well, you have seamless buying with Squarespace payments. They really are the complete package, everything that you need, and by following my link, squarespace.com/bellulargaming, you get to build your site for free. And then when you're ready to send it live, my code BellularGaming gets you 10% off your first purchase of a site or domain. Milkgenius had a normal time at first. Pleasant even. Lots of people told him to do things like incinerate living creatures around the Dragon Isles, and he did so with a smile. His barrier was impenetrable. He blew up enemies in a few casts at most. Then something changed. As he leveled and mastered new spells, he actually got weaker. Pyroblast felt like tepid air blast. He might have done more damage blowing kisses than throwing fireballs. It felt ridiculous. And then enemies chunked him with every swing. And before poor Milkgenius knew what was happening, he found himself needing everything in his arsenal to survive. Burst, Time Warp, Ice Block, all just to take on the local wildlife. The same wildlife, the very same wildlife that he had just been exploding with a simple glance just a few hours before. Now, of course, as an experienced WoW player, you're probably familiar with slowing down as you level, but I promise you, you have not seen anything this bad. We have not seen anything this bad because we just hadn't done this in a while, and by now it really is different. And this all made leveling a living nightmare. WoW felt like less of a well-designed video game. Fighting one mob without combustion was pointless. Pulling two at the same time meant certain death. It took every mage spell in the book to kill named NPCs, and usually in a few tries. This was not fun. It was somewhere between a pointless slog and just being insanely frustrating. And this is in the hands of a good player, someone with many years of experience. What do you think would happen to a new player? A new player who would die trying to 1v1 a regular mob, say a boar. They would probably quit the game. It's just hard to imagine anyone bothering with this. Even if they survived, getting weaker over time is kind of the opposite of what an RPG should be. There's essentially, in my view, no way they would stick with it. Not unless they had a whole bunch of friends boosting them and getting them towards the endgame. And the sad news for Milkgenius is it actually got worse before it got better. Hours of struggling later, he finally reached Orgrimmar. He'd done the non-combat quests where he could. Now they called him to set the newest continent ablaze. Yes, he was being called to Kaz Algar. Without a well-timed save from a hunter who just happened to be there, he actually would, well, maybe still be dying from that Nerubian lord you've got to fight in Dalaran in the intro. You know, over and over and over again, because it was actually just that bad as a fight. And remember, you need to beat that boss to finish the scenario, and that means that as a new player, there is no way to continue. It was genuinely impossible alone, and that's because Milkgenius was a victim. He was a victim of scaling and how it's essentially broken for the game as it is being played by new players right now. And the sad thing for Milkgenius is there was just about nothing he could do about it. So, how did we get into this mess? How did this happen? Let's break it all down then. Our actual problem here was gear. On the Isle of Dorn, the quest reward from the impossible intro quest really did prove that, and that's because the same slot went from plus 40 stamina to plus 1295. It's quite a lot more. It's an extra 25k HP. It's a 16% increase from just one item. That's out of 14 slots. And this was not just health either. This slot went from 20 int to 441, plus 3% crit and 1% haste. That was all from one single hat. Okay, what actually happened here? Well, Milkgenius had actually out-leveled so fast that he drastically outgrew his gear, and it was nigh on impossible to keep him with a set of gear that actually fit his level. Most of his equipment was so bad that he may as well have been naked, which is a sad state of affairs for poor Milkgenius. And of course, that's on a fresh account, without the warband buff that gives you up to like 25% more XP. And of course, this was a fresh account. That means no heirlooms. Basically, this is the stock experience where there are really no pointers or explainers. And that means that leveling is just too fast for how Blizzard's game actually awards people gear. Why? Well, campaign quests are designed with a specific curve in mind. You'd get a few pieces in every zone as you would level up. Then you would hit max with a full quest set of gear. Some pieces would be a few item levels lower. That's for a fairly obvious reason. You would maybe get one piece of gear at level 64 instead of at level 69, but that's not really a big deal. Job done, you've hit max level. And that's what happens because Dragonflight, and of course later on War Within, have got their continents designed for a 10 leveling span, not a 60 or 70 leveling span. That's why this breaks. Players drop into Dragonflight at level 10. They then finish the campaign somewhere in the 40s, and that's when they essentially run out of easy gear, which leads to this situation. This poor soul was still wearing gear from his 30s and 40s. He wasn't level 50, he wasn't level 55, no, he was in his 60s. And this is not like WoW Classic. You see, in Classic, wearing a 15 green was fine for like 20 levels. Gear scaling is absolutely nuts now, and that's the key difference between now and Classic. Every slot was hundreds of item levels below where it should have been. Thousands of stats behind. And you may say, just go get some gear, bro, that's the problem. Easy. Well, Milkgenius wishes it was easy. Some side quests drop gear. The odd world quests do as well. But even if you understand that system, which again, if you're a new player, you probably won't, there's no reliable way to replace garbage. As an example, when I say garbage, say, imagine that plus 10 strength belt that you picked up at level 25. Now, if you're thinking, just buy bind on equipped gear then, well, we thought about that as well. BOEs below level 80 are unbelievably expensive. Many of you probably know why. It's because the only people buying them are giga-rich transmog hunters who want to fill out their set. And that's an economic context that poor Milkgenius and of course every new player to the game won't exactly be in. You see, with today's leveling speeds, you'll only have a few thousand gold by the time you hit this problem. And if you're in the know, you won't really want to spend that. As an example, just think about how expensive enchants and crafting are up at max level. That means that spending any money in gear before level 80 is a huge mistake. But hang on a second. You may be wondering why you don't have that problem, why you are not like the poor victim of today's video, Milkgenius, and the legions, the probably hundreds of thousands of potential new players that are bouncing off World of Warcraft every month. You and Milkgenius ain't the same. You'll have heirlooms. Those heirlooms will scale with level. And even if you don't, you can queue for every single dungeon with Chromie time. Or perhaps you'll only be leveling your characters during time walking weeks, where you can just spam dungeons with shorter queues and get loads of gear. That's not what a new player will be doing. What we're talking about today is a new player problem. Now, you can technically avoid it if you run dungeons. Scaling is a little different there, but hey, you will get some gear. But the DPS queue times for Dragonflight dungeons are prohibitively long, and you're trapped in the Dragon Isles until level 70 anyway. So, if you ask me, asking a new player to AFK in a queue is not much of a solution to this problem. And if you're not convinced that this is a problem, Let me put it this way. Blizzard putting WoW on sale like this is basically them trying to fill a bathtub. But what they, well, probably realize but have not yet acted on is that bathtub, well, doesn't really have a plug in it. So all of those new players they chuck into World of Warcraft simply just drain away. Okay, look, I've got to pull the handbrake and do a crazy power turn, but trust me, I'm actually going somewhere with this. It's relevant. The Final Fantasy XIV director wrote blogs early in the game's life, and he talked about something similar. There was a quest in A Realm Reborn. A few of you may know it. It asked you to get a full set of item level 5+ gear, and right beside that quest giver was an NPC vendor. That vendor sold the last item that you needed, a piece of leg armor, and the game explains all of this stuff to you. But here's what happened. Even with all of that, their stopping point data showed something different. The data showed this was the quest most quitting players stopped at. Which is kind of crazy, right? Such a simple barrier, yet it kind of destroyed their player signups. Now they ended up changing this. They changed it to be more clear. When they changed, it actually worked. More people stayed. You see, players don't like being confused. They don't like feeling confused. And in this case, it's new players who have not put hours into an MMO. They're gonna feel confused real easy. MMOs are overwhelming. They won't put up with the sorts of bullshit that you and I will put up with basically all the time. Hey, we're WoW players, we're used to it. But they won't put up with that. Now, I do not have access to Blizzard's stopping point data, but I can promise you this. They have tons of people who finish the Dragonflight campaign, they hit the wall that Milkgenius hit, and then they get confused. The campaign stops giving them gear. They find that they cannot kill mobs. They also can't find side quests. They get confused. They don't like feeling confused. They try to Google things about the game, but Google's a mess. WoW data is just spread across lots of different websites, ones that are useful but often high cognitive load to use. So what happens is they simply quit. I think in doing these sales, Blizzard is pouring time and effort into finding water for the bucket, but they haven't perhaps realized or acted on the fact there's a giant hole in the bottom of that bucket. But I do have some good news. It's not all hopelessness, because our boy Milkgenius found a way out. You see, once Milkgenius put on that new bit of gear, the hat that I described that gave him thousands more stats, everything changed. His new hat made him so strong that he could kill 3 quest mobs at the same time when he popped all of his cooldowns. Not very impressive, but it was a massive difference. It was moving from playing the game feeling impossible to feeling technically possible. Now, questing was still extremely slow. Gear came in drips and drops, and some slots just felt impossible to replace. So eventually, Matt, who, by the way, was the man behind Milkgenius, he ended up just giving up. He was tired of pretending to be a new player. He wanted a way out. Now, someone suggested he log out for 2 whole months, and that in doing so, the gear update function of the game would appear and give him a starting set. That was of course not very appealing, so instead, he learned tailoring and he just went and made all of his own gear. And this worked by pure luck. Cloth drops came from mobs anyway, but say a plate wearer needing to go and mine ore, well, that is a whole different story. Anyway, over the next level or two, he was able to craft enough gear to catch up, to make Milkgenius strong. Turned out that Matt's game knowledge just got him back on track because he knew how to use the crafting system. That meant that now he could level up to 80 without having to pull individual mobs one at a time. And with that problem solved, he could start in the real task: suffering, playing at max level, which was the entire point of Milkgenius's existence. Now, part of all of this was actually fun, to be clear. Squeezing out every little bit of damage to kill mobs is kind of satisfying, and I'm not making this video to say that leveling should just be one-shotting mobs for 80 levels while you live in some sort of fugue state putting Doritos into your mouth. No. Players do need to learn how to play, and there's times where old Milkgenius was forced to learn how to play. But what Milkgenius went through is not what Blizzard intends. I mean, a few pieces of gear, doubling your health, doubling your damage, that is not healthy for the game. It's clearly not intended. I mean, we're in a situation where anyone who does not know exactly where gear comes from will actually struggle. And remember, we're talking about new players. who by definition do not know things. Now, if they don't know how to use their full kit, say maxing out their cooldowns or choosing a specific talent build, well, then this game, World of Warcraft, is genuinely unplayable. And if World of Warcraft is genuinely unplayable for new players, it's maybe a little bit tricky for Blizzard to actually grow World of Warcraft. Blizzard had a solution for this, but the funny thing is, they, actually just took it right out of the game. You see, the Winds of Mysterious Fortune event dropped bags with bonus gear, and that bonus gear scaled to your level. Basically, it operated just like bags from doing random dungeons, but now, of course, it's gone. And what the removal of this does is kind of screw over new players who basically bought the game in the recent sale. Because if they bought the game and maybe didn't hit level 80 in time, they could get completely slammed by the gear drought and them just not understanding where gear comes from, especially because when they signed up to the game, it came from the Winds of Mysterious Fortune event. Now, Blizzard could overhaul the scaling here. You know, simply lock systems designers in a room with spreadsheets and force them to fix it, to make the gear curve less sharp. But we all know that's probably a waste of time, that doing so would probably jeopardize the already delicate balance of the game, because every time Blizzard changes scaling, there are hosts of unintended consequences. So let's think about the simple way. And the simple way is to make sure players get more gear. Fairly easy. Basically, it's to bake those bonus gear bags in permanently for new players, or to do something that they actually did in the past. You see, in Mists of Pandaria, vendors sold full sets of leveling greens. You could actually just buy them to make sure you were ready. So if you add that, and then add a quest pointing players to that, then, problem solved. If you want to be really lazy, well, just drop a full set of leveling gear on characters every 10 levels. Make it a quest reward. I think that would feel bad, but you know what? If Blizzard are having players abandon the game in droves, even though it's solving a nuanced problem with a humongous sledgehammer, at least the problem would be solved, and we would not have the player attrition that I'm fairly sure we have with new accounts. Now, at any rate, we know that a longer term, that a bigger systemic solution is actually coming here. Holly Longdale has talked about true change to the new player experience. That cannot come soon enough. But if it is going to be a while, I think Blizzard should do something about gear acquisition. Because, look, we were honestly shocked by how horrible this was to play. I wonder if you're someone who hangs out in mentor chat, what your experience is like, seeing just the problems that new players have. At any rate, I would love to see the stop data, to see basically what Yoshi P shared in that blog all those years ago about FF14, but of course, for World of Warcraft. Let me know, what's your experience been? Have you tried to get friends into WoW only to find that they've had a very unintuitive experience? Do share with us. With that said, watch this video next.